Good afternoon and happy Saturday, Mariners fans. As always, it is Mahal and welcome to episode 102 of the Light the W podcast. Like I said, today is Saturday, December 6th, and Saturdays are not a normal recording day for the pod. So that means the Mariners have made a move, and that they have. They have added to their bullpen in a trade with the Washington Nationals. The way we're going to talk about it today is we're going to start with the return, which people are not super happy about. We'll start there before getting into the piece that the Mariners got in the trade. So, without further ado, let's sound the horn. So, if you haven't already heard, the Mariners have acquired left-handed reliever Jose Ferrer, in exchange for catching prospect Harry Ford and another smaller piece. Obviously, the piece that people are not happy about and the big piece is Harry Ford. Here's where I want to tee this off with. Harry Ford is a top 100 prospect and is a top 5-ish prospect in the Mariners system. He is a catching prospect that's bat has never truly came together, even at the minor league level. And here's the thing. People are upset because they think that the Mariners overpaid and that Ford was too big of a piece to give up. But here's where I'm at with it. Jerry Dipoto, Justin Hollander, the Mariners front offices are very smart with a lot of their trades. Not often do they overpay for guys. So number one, they must really like Ferrer. And number two, I think that they see Ford as someone that might not work in the majors. It might not work for them. And also on that, we don't know how the Mariners value Harry Ford, how the Nationals value Harry Ford, how anyone around the league values Harry Ford. So, well, you may like Harry Ford a lot as a prospect, and I was one that did like Harry Ford. You don't know how these front offices are thinking. And it's not like you know better than the front office of the Seattle Mariners and Jerry Dipoto, who puts together really good trades often. And you shouldn't act like that. You shouldn't act like, oh, this is a bad trade. Jerry's a bad GM. Hollander's a bad GM. Jerry's bad as the president of baseball office. This is a dumb trade, etc., etc., etc. Wait, let's see what each of these guys does. Ford could be a nothing burger at the major league level. He could also be good. But you just don't know. You know? You never know what a guy is going to produce at the major league level when they're just a prospect. And this is a guy that, yes, he hit 16 home runs, hit 283, had an on-base over 400 at Tacoma. But that's the Pacific Coast League. Let's go back another year. Let's look at what he did at Double-A. Just 7 home runs in 116 games. Hit just 250. 377 on base. And a slugging below his on-base percentage at 367. OPS is 745. That's at the Double-A level. To me, it's, yeah, you want to see what they do at the major league level. You want to see what they do at the Triple-A level. But also, I want to see what they do at the Double-A level. And this was a guy that didn't have the best production at the Double-A level. He's a guy that walks a lot. He doesn't strike out a whole lot, which is a positive thing. But the walks and the strikeouts will naturally go wayward at the major league level. That's just kind of how it works. And for a guy that was known to have a very good eye and to walk a lot in the minors, yes, it was 8 plate appearances, but he didn't have a single walk at the major league level. Now, don't take much into that, but he did have 3 strikeouts in those at-bats. So, number one, like I've said, we don't know how teams value Harry Ford, including the Mariners. Number two, this guy has continually lost value. And number three, it was going to be hard for him to succeed in a Seattle Mariners uniform with Cal Raleigh locked up and producing the way he has been. Right? When the Mariners acquired Luke Stevenson in the draft, when they drafted Luke Stevenson, catcher out of the University of North Carolina, people were like, okay, Harry Ford's gone. And now people are upset that Harry Ford is traded? You think the Mariners are going to trade Harry Ford for smaller value than they could have otherwise got? That's not how this organization operates. That's not really how baseball operates. The Mariners traded Harry Ford in the package that they thought made the most sense for them. And I'm going to trust them on that until I have a reason not to. And the talk this offseason has been about Ford being blocked at the major league level, and I haven't wanted to give into that because, well, it's true. You can find at bats for guys, and right now there's no DH for the Seattle Mariners, really. I mean, there is in a sense with Canzone or Robles, but at the same time, there isn't. And I wonder if this is a catalyst to another deal, to acquire another catcher, whether that's in the Rule 5 draft, or whether that's via trade, or whether they're going to re-sign Mitch Garver, go sign Jonah Heim. There are options out there, and you can fill out your backup catcher spot for a reasonable payroll allocation. And it's hard for a young guy to succeed when they're not getting consistent at-bats at the major league level. And Ford just wasn't going to have that opportunity unless he really proved he deserved those at-bats. And it was going to be hard for him to prove that as a backup catcher when he's getting 1 or 2 starts a week. And otherwise would come in as a pinch hitter. So from the Mariners' perspective, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to trade Harry Ford. And I understand why people are like, this is what you got for Harry Ford? But his value has dipped every year, and it's continually dipping, and it's been dipping. And you just don't know how baseball values Harry Ford. So, again, I've said this multiple times, but trust your front office. Trust the people that built a Mariners team that got 7 outs from the World Series last year. Trust that before you go out and say, I don't like this. Let's trust what they've done. Let's believe in what they've done. And there are reasons to be excited about this trade and about the acquisition of Jose Ferrer. And to me, it starts partially with what he did in 2025, but I want to start with his 2024 season. He threw 32 innings at the age of 24 years old. He had a singular save, had an ERA just over 3 1/3. xERA was under 3. FIP was under 3. Produced half a win. Limited walks at a really good rate. Give it just a quarter of a home run per 9 innings. So that's a homer every 36 innings? So, yeah, he gave up just 1 homer, and he's given up just 10 in his career over 3 years and over 142 games. Over 142 1/3 innings, just 10 home runs. He doesn't let the ball get out of the ballpark. He produces elite ground ball rate. Doesn't strike the most guys out. But he throws 97, 98 from the left side. Was in the 99th percentile in ground ball rate last year. The 93rd in barrel rate. 95th in walk rate. And averaged 97.7 miles an hour. If you want to go look at that 2024 season that I was talking about, he wasn't qualified on Baseball Savant, but a barrel percent of just 1%. And there are some clear things that he tweaked from the 2024 season to the 2025 season. And most namely of most was he removed his four-seam fastball and threw his sinker instead of 53% of the time in 2024 at 71% of the time in 2025. So what I want to look at first is this 2024 season and why I think this four-seam fastball might be something the Mariners look at bringing back. Because I think this is a guy that they're going to make some slight tweaks with. Let's look at this four-seam fastball first. The four-seam fastball in 2024, batting average at 292 against, but the batting average just 221, slugged just 333, X 249. This was a good pitch. 23.5% whiff rate. And it allows the sinker to play up. So looking next at the sinker, opponents hit 227 against it and slugged 258 against it. Both slightly overperformed their expected numbers. But you remove that four-seam fastball from 2024, and in 2025, instead of having that four-seam just is the sinker, it's just the sinker that he throws fastball-wise. Opponents hit 309 with a 285 expected batting average and slug 420 with an X slug of about 400. They hit 4 home runs off of it after not hitting any in the 2024 season. Just 1 extra base hit against the sinker in the 2024 season, and he had 6 in the 2025 season. That said, he threw almost 4 times as many in the 2025 season, and that's because he removed that four-seam fastball partially. Also because it's a larger sample size in 2025 when he was a full-time reliever. But in 2025, his arsenal was a sinker, a changeup, and a slider. And when your arsenal is pitches that look like a fastball break different ways in the sinker and the changeup, having a four-seam fastball or a cutter or a splitter or different variations of that change how those pitches are approached and seen. So just having the four-seam fastball in his back pocket changes how a hitter is going to approach hitting him, because they see velo, they see the sinker, and they're like, or they see velo and they're like, okay, it's sinker. Versus 2024, they see velo and it's, oh, it could be a four-seam or it could be a sinker. These pitches should tunnel well, right? And the whole idea with pitching is you want pitches to tunnel. And a four-seam fastball and a sinker tunnel really well, which is why you see when most pitchers have a sinker, they try to also throw a four-seam fastball. Or when pitchers have a four-seam fastball, they try to also throw a two-seam or a sinker. Now, alongside that, the four-seam fastball naturally moves more like a two-seam fastball. It has some horizontal movement on it. And you don't have to throw that pitch 23% of the time like you did in 2024. But having it thrown just 15% even of the time and throwing that slider slightly more might be advantageous to him. You want to talk about that 2025 season? He threw the slider a little bit more, especially against left-handed hitters. 18% of the time against left-handed hitters. 2024, 16% of the time. And just 5% of the time normally. It went from a 3-pitch mix against especially right-handed hitters to a 2-pitch mix against right-handed hitters. A changeup and a sinker. And the sinker he threw 67% of the time. So nearly 70% of the time you're seeing sinker. The other 30% you're seeing changeup. And both these pitches, they move very similarly. But the changeup 10 miles an hour slower. You can see why those two pitches in tandem work well. But I think you need another one. And the question I have is, what if you have a way to throw a cutter, right? And your slider kind of acts like a cutter. But I think to me, that slider is the pitch that might be a key to unlocking this guy. It's one that moves pretty horizontally versus some that move more vertically. It's going to move horizontally, especially compared to a sinker or a changeup that move horizontally the reverse way. So bring those usages closer to each other. Use that slider 10, 15% of the time. Use the sinker just about 60% of the time, and use the changeup 20, 25% of the time. And that changes a lot for him. And if you throw the four seam back in there, throw that about 10% of the time. Now the sinker's only getting thrown, 50% of the time? That's going to play up the sinker. That's going to play up the changeup. That's going to play up the slider. Just having more things for a hitter to think about. I think there are some very obvious tweaks with him that the Mariners are probably going to make that are going to make him better. And it's going to make this trade, for some people, make more sense. But even with his arsenal, this guy killed left-handed hitters. Left-handed hitters in 28 and a third innings, 110 hitters, hit 186, 217, 304 with just 6 extra base hits and only 3 home runs. Just 2 guys walked to 26 strikeouts. Right-handed hitters was where he struggled more. Right-handed hitters, 323, 380, 422. Strikeout rate went down and his walk rate went up. The biggest thing is left-handed hitters, just a 2% walk rate. Right-handed hitters, 6.5% walk rate. Let's go back and look at his 2024 season for splits, when he was having a different arsenal. Right-handed hitters, just 260, 313, 312. Just 2 extra base hits and 1 home run. The walk rate were closer to even. It was a little higher against left-handed hitters, but it was down against right-handed hitters. So I really do think that four-seam fastball is something the Mariners think about bringing back, even if he's just not throwing it at the same amount he did in 2024. And how do you change his usage with the slider, the changeup, all that type of stuff? But this is a guy that can pitch the 7th inning for you for sure. From the left side, this is going to fit in as a second lefty alongside Gabe Spire with room for growth. A FIP of about 3. But the question I have is, this is a high ground ball pitcher. Like I said, 99th percentile in ground ball rate. And for a Mariners defense that, let's be honest, is not the greatest in terms of their infield defense. Part of that's because J.P. Crawford and his range. Part of that's because Jorge Polanco is playing second some. And Naylor doesn't have the greatest range either. But I'll also remind you that Ben Williamson and Colt Emerson at third base are going to be better than Gino Suarez was in 2025. J.P. Crawford is still the big wild card in that infield defense. Cole Young's going to be a little bit better of a defender at second base than Polanco was. And Naylor will be better overall throughout the entire year than the likes of Rowdy Tellez, for example, was for part of the year. So I think the infield defense will naturally improve a little bit. But if the Mariners had better infield defense, this trade would make a lot more sense. And Carlos Vargas also would be a better reliever, because that's another guy that is elite at getting ground balls. If you want to talk about Carlos Vargas's ground ball percentage, he's in the 95th percentile, 57%. But this is a guy that gets less strikeouts than Ferrer, less whiff than Ferrer. His chase is about the same. And he walks a few more guys. But Vargas also a sinker-first guy from the right side that throws 97, 98 miles an hour. So I don't want to comp these two guys by any means, because Vargas is a 5-pitch but mostly 3-pitch mix guy, and he has better extension, he's better at limiting hard hit, but he's worse at walks, worse at strikeouts, worse at getting whiff. He gets more contact than even Ferrer does. You want to talk about the whiff and the chase and the strikeouts and stuff. He's not bad by any means. 45th percentile in strikeout percentage, 48th percentile in whiff percentage, 51st in chase percentage. So it's a profile that I don't want to comp this guy to Carlos Vargas, but that is somewhat similar to Vargas, just with more strikeouts, with less walks, and with even more ground balls. In totality, I like this move. You're acquiring a 25-year-old left-handed reliever that throws 97, 98 miles an hour. 6'1", 233 with 4 years of control that with some tweaks could become a really dominant reliever. And that in of itself is really exciting and really fun. So I understand where people are coming from when they're like, I don't love this move. I do. But dig a little deeper. Because to me, this is a really fun and really exciting move. It's risky, don't get me wrong. But I think it's fun. I think it's an exciting move. And it'll be one that will be really interesting to see how it plays out. But you got this guy for 4 years. Still has options that you probably won't need, but still has options. Showed that he can kind of close games last year, had 11 saves, and is dominant, especially against left-handed hitters. And if you can find a way to get this guy to be able to get more right-handed hitters out, this becomes a real weapon for you out of your pen. All that said, this is a lot longer than I was actually expecting, but emergency pod time for episode 101 of the Light the W podcast. I will be back Tuesday, and we'll be talking winter meetings. We'll be talking Stephen Kwan, unless a bunch of moves go on, and the outfield situation for the Seattle Mariners in 2026. Thank you guys so much for joining. Again, episode 101. Follow all the socials at Light the W pod on everything. Till next time, peace, y'all, and go Imps.